Willkommen, dobrodošli, selamat, bienvenidos, ahlan wa sahlan, karibuni sana. Welcome to the Truly Global Journalism Seminars. I'm Caitlin Mercer, Associate Director of the Fellowship Program here at the Reuters Institute, filling in as host today. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan once said, "Cartoonists have a big influence on the way different groups of people look at each other. They can encourage us to look critically at ourselves, increase our empathy for the suffering and frustrations of others, but they can also do the opposite. They have, in short, a big responsibility." This week, we're joined by a man who carries that big responsibility in Kenya, award-winning visual artist Paul Kelemba, or Maddo as he's better known. Maddo has been publishing his full-page graphic interpretations of the news in the Standard newspaper since 1989. That makes his column, "It's a Mad, Mad World," one of the longest running in the country's publishing history. Born in Jericho, Nairobi, his older brother thought Maddo should be an accountant, but a winning submission to a drawing competition at the age of 7 seeded the creative bug, and KPMG's loss is Kenya's gain. This week, Maddo has agreed to share examples from his 33-year-old archive of cartoons, as well as his thoughts on the role of political cartooning in 2022. Welcome, Maddo.
I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm fine, and I'm really thrilled to be here. Many, many thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. So when we were discussing what we were going to show, I thought let's kick off with something really vintage, and we've dug up this. Let's see if I can get it shared correctly. Boom. No, I cannot. Stop. Forgive me. The sharing is not my forte, but here we go. We've dug up this this gem from 1989. This must have been one of your first strips for the Standard.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was just a couple of months old at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a real time capsule. It kind of takes you back to the fall of communism, Gorbachev, Kenyan politics, the search for a cure for AIDS, and I want to stop and zoom in here on your predictions for the 90s. What's it like seeing how much of what you predicted is true now in 2022?
Yeah, I had quite a horrible handwriting then.
What's changed, Maddo, since 1989? What do you do differently?
Okay. This is a very long period of time, 33 years or thereabout. We always envisage change. We know change is going to come, change is tomorrow and so on. But obviously, some of the changes have actually astounded us. They are pretty astonishing, they're surprising, just as much as they are welcome. I knew, for example, way back in 1989 that the way we do our stuff was going to change. Obviously, but at the time I never thought about drawing pads and so on. But I knew there was a way, and that has occurred over time. Some aspects were slow, and others were pretty vicious and very fast. So that we really, as cartoonists, really had to scramble and get on board and move along with the rest of the world as it is. Yeah, I changed from black and white to full color about probably 1995, and then also began processing my artwork on the computer. By that time, what you just showed was direct pencil sketch, pen, rub out the pencil, have it scanned, and give it to the guys at the production guys in the newsroom.
Wow.
Yeah, but today it's obviously pretty different. I do it. I don't do it entirely on the computer like my younger colleagues. It's been very difficult to transit from the famous rotary pen. So I still So I still pretty much start out with pencil, go on to ink. Then that is what now I scan and put into the computer to process the rest as it is. So as it is right now, I can do it anywhere, from anywhere on earth. I've produced an edition in Europe. I've produced an edition in Washington, DC. It's just a click of the button when I'm done. Yes.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask, what media are you consuming? What's the process like from start to finish to inform what things you're going to be talking about that week?
First of all, obviously, an editorial cartoonist has to be very, very observant of current events and social life around them. It's crucial to what we do. Now, the way I gather the stuff that I do has also gone through tremendous change over time, in that I was and still am quite a consumer of television, radio, and the print media. That is changing. So because so many young people right now have actually run away from those mediums, but it's still a principal source of my sorry, my phone is ringing.
You're in demand.
Yes, I forgot to put it on silent.
That's fine.
Anyway, oh yes, yeah. So the most important, besides the mediums that I've just referred to, is obviously sitting down with people. So a cartoonist has to be really a social animal. You go out there, you meet people, you have drinks with them, you sit down, you converse, and so on. And from that, I build up what I do, because I can even attribute probably a comfortable 40% of what I do that comes from the people that I interact with. Either people who will write to me, or people that I just engage. And also, we cannot run away from social media, because it's there. It's now leading in breaking news as it is. Though as professionals, we want to be very, very careful. We just don't, we won't rush for anything that's breaking until it's been consolidated into news that is really happening and it's been confirmed. So I also rely on that. And there's quite a lot. Also from the chatter and debate that pops up on social media, I'm also able to pick up something as it is and consolidate in my work.
I was going to ask you, do you spend much time on social media now to see what the young people are talking about, or are you just talking to young people in real life?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I will not be the best, obviously. Young people are slicker. They're very slick when it comes to social media. But yes, I engage them a lot. Though I do realize that my audience, the age bracket has moved. You know, it's no longer very young, because the young actually kind of get their stuff from what they post. But at least I capture an audience of let's say from the mid-30s, late 30s to very elderly people who can still read. And I'm glad about that. And I still try to, you know, what I'm doing is working very carefully to keep that audience, because audiences today, you need so much to do so. And since I've got a whole page, I try to do something that will please all folks and still pull in what can appeal to young people.
So let's move from 1989 across to, I think this is, you'll have to correct me, is this 2021? Yes. And now, you can see how you've gone from that third page to now a full page in color. I
don't have any image.
Can you don't let me try.
Yeah, nothing so far.
Nothing. Okay.
But if you describe it, I'll remember. Yeah.
I'm gonna try going back and share. I should have practiced more, huh? How about now?
There we are. Yeah, this is last year, 2021.
Great.
Yeah, and I had Zoom as my lead on that page that day. Yes.
Really a dream one for anyone teaching cartoon analysis. You've got all the elements in here, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. He'd gone to jail, obviously, as one can see here. And we all recall there was that chaotic response to his jailing at the time. But what is important, the reason why I labeled his prison garb is to remind my readers at the time what this man was accused of. And we can see all that. There was plenty of corruption he was accused of. Whether he's guilty or not is not for me to say. But obviously, when you're dragged into court, there is something to it. So this, to me, in my view, this was he was an interesting and the kind of individual that South Africans believed will make a good president, and that's why he became president at the time. But then apparently, probably several months, probably a year into his presidency, he got that politician's bag and changed, and he's paying for it.
There's Michael Ramirez, who's a bit of a controversial political cartoonist, said
Yes.
Power turns people into monsters. Political cartoonists turn monsters back into human beings. Do you think that's accurate? Is that perhaps what you're doing in this?
I'm actually in quiescence. This is very, very correct. Sometimes I tell my friends that when one has quite some little money, you're just a simple person, but then you've got quite some little money and you walk into a pub, you tend to change your behavior from what it was yesterday when you didn't have any money at all. And now you can imagine at this level, the motorcade, signing off parliamentary bills into law, the guard of honor and all that. This is going to affect even an angel. Oh yes, and people like these ones cannot really run away from that. So I do agree with that saying. It is very, very true. Very, very true.
Do you see part of your role as educating your audience about politics and current affairs?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There are many schools or paths or mediums to do so. And I believe that I occupy one of them, and I've done so all these years. It's an important role, I know. That's both in politics and society. Whenever I'm dealing with society, I try to tell people to have good morals, to uphold good morals, good public behavior and all that. So but to do so, I'll illustrate the negative side, for them to see. And then when it comes to politics, they've had quite a bashing from me over the years, and they don't like me a lot. So over time, I believe that I've had a role, quite, I won't say it's key, because there are the institutions and individuals who would do the same. But I do occupy a comfortable kind of position in this path to making society better, and even indeed political discourse.
Speaking of political discourse, it's a very good segue to your next cartoon, and you'll have to tell me if we get this correct or not. Let's see. Sure. Moi. Can you see that? So this was the first time in Kenyan history that a publisher ran a cartoon depiction of a Kenyan president.
Okay, yeah, but the image is not there, but as you're sorting it out, I can talk about it. Yes, it was, at least in mainstream media, as it is. But I always hasten to say that I wasn't really the first cartoonist or just artist who depict Moi as a caricature. This had been, I was beaten to it by university students, University of Nairobi, somewhere in the 80s, where one or two of them depicted Moi, drew him and pasted that like a poster somewhere, but it was clandestine, really. So what we are looking at right now is the very, very first time that Moi was depicted openly, because Society magazine was respected weekly at the time. Very hard-hitting as it is. But at this point, I should say, there was no way we were going to depict Moi as a cartoon in the newspapers at the time. It will never get past the editor. So the editor who was involved here, an individual by the name of Pius Nyamora, was bold enough to ask me that if you've got the guts, then we've got the guts. we were going to do this. So we went ahead and did it. But, you know, again, looking at this many years later on, I tell myself, it might not really been that hard-hitting as such. Yes, I was suggesting that he had created a softer path for himself and put obstacles for everybody else, meaning that there was not very good electoral practices and so on, and rigging as it was, and actually it was done at the time. But it wasn't that difficult. It wasn't that hard hitting, if you ask me. But it was nonetheless a watershed moment for cartoonists in the region. And one thing that I should say, for some reason, the intelligence police, who had been kind of picking up all publications they deemed not very kind to the president at the time, did not show up. They just let this thing sell. And the editor didn't come on duty that day because he was afraid he was going to be picked up, but nothing happened. And everything went quiet a week later. And thereafter, Maddo, my colleague, had just succeeded me at the Daily Nation. So that really opened ways for other cartoonists, you know, to start depicting Moi. Maddo went ahead and started, being a lot more open, though he could not be as critical as we are today. And what I did at the Standard, I just moved to the Standard. I was doing the same, but kind of covering up the guy with a hat, you know, to lessen the impact. And also many years later on, we were told that Moi actually never minded those cartoons. It was his handlers, his lieutenants, who did.
Right. Did you ever speak to him personally?
No, I never did.
Do you ever speak to any of the politicians that you've kind of skewered over the years? And
yes, I do. I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
But they are normally very uncomfortable with me, and they tell me to my face that we don't really want to say this or that because we're going to find ourselves in your future. Yeah. Now, I don't know why I scare them that much or I make them that uncomfortable. But see, on the other hand, I feel happy about it because none of them has been able to compromise me. So I remain a free soul. I don't glance over my shoulder. I do whatever I want to do. And indeed, I spare none of them. Now, obviously, I've got my natural biases, but all of them are up for criticism.
I think it's very telling. In one of your interviews, you said you put yourself in your cartoons, and you think it's important to be able to laugh at yourself first before you laugh at other people. I thought that was...
Yes, yeah, it's very important. President Kenyatta, the present one, we've had two. Yeah. Oh, yes. I have this idea that he looks down upon not only the whole media, but cartoonists. Like we all know Consequence, we're just jokers, you know, and stuff like that. So he'd probably maybe throw a tantrum when we will depict his physical features. Now, this is what I'm driving at. Physical features of an individual are very important for cartoonists. And what we do, we exaggerate what is already there. Now, one can feel that we are being unfair by doing that, either making one's lips fatter than they are, his ears more flappy than they are. That is why it is very important for the cartoonist to start with himself or herself. So right now, you might have noticed probably that my signature involves two eyes. And obviously, those are my eyes. They are not the smallest on earth. So that is indeed looking at me, looking at myself in the mirror with a smile. And it becomes easier now to do the other people. And they cannot accuse me of anything.
Let me see if I have an example of that. That one, the two eyes are literally in your signature.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's you.
Yes, yeah.
Are you able to see my screen at the moment?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Great. What do you think the personality traits are of a good political cartoonist?
Okay, it takes a lot, really. You can be a very good artist, but then you don't know how to translate what you're observing in life and onto paper or the screen. So you have to have some various, actually a lot of great and awesome attributes that will make you, well, a successful cartoonist. These will, to me, include, obviously, this is natural, the ability to be very, very humorous. Yeah, you can't really produce this stuff if you're a, how can I describe it? You know, a cold person. You know, you must have humor in yourself. You must have the ability to make fun of yourself and others, obviously in a beautiful way. You must be able to grasp news events, and also importantly, analyze those events, and then come up with an opinion. And that opinion is different, obviously, from an opinion written in a newspaper or read out on television. This is something that you're going to freeze in an image, in a visual. Yeah, unless you animate it, it's just a single cartoon, especially for those who do the daily editorial cartoon. It's just there. It's inanimate as it is. So one, your audience should be able to understand what you've put out. So that cartoonist has to have the ability to do so. I've worked with so many young cartoonists over the years, and indeed many others who are just slightly younger than myself. And one or two are fallen by the roadside because they fail to have these very special aspects within themselves. There is one or two right now who, let's look at it this way. One may be a very good cartoonist, but they fail to put the ideas properly on paper. Well, the other one might have very good ideas, but they're not really fine artists, so to speak. So you need a combination of all that.
Right. Do you think some of the young artists are trying to be too clever?
Yeah, many of them come in with pretty hot blood. And indeed, in the past, I've told one or two of them, hey, look, establish yourself. Obviously, you have to come in with a bang. I'm not saying that you crawl into the industry. No, nobody will notice you, especially right now. You have to come in with a bang, and that explosive arrival of these cartoonists does not necessarily mean that you come in and you call the president an idiot, you know that kind of thing. But still, you'll do something on him. But then establish yourself first. Then you move on. Once you're accepted and you've got the support of your editors and your audience, then you have some power. Yeah,
it sounds like being fearless might be one of the personality traits as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Be willing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You really have to be. So sometimes I produce something, then I tell myself, okay, on Saturday when it's published, is that politician going to send the tags?
Do you think you're as fearless today as you were in 1989?
Okay. What happens also over time, one mellows, as it is. I'm almost 60 now, and well, I'm really convinced that I'm still as hard-hitting as I was over 30 years ago. But yes, one does kind of not really relax themselves or whatever, because I'm not ready to do that even into the next decade.
Good.
But really, okay. I've never really kind of left my path.
Right.
Yes, I really keep on it.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself self-censoring what you want to say?
At times, you tell yourself, okay, if I do this particular thing, it might get problems. Yeah, but today you realize that things are very open in this country as it is. Our democratic spaces have really blown up. It's very nice. We're enjoying the democratic spaces. But however, when it comes to, you see, the reason why I'm mumbling about this is that I don't really want to call it censorship as we called it those many years ago. But there are limits. There are ceilings. For example, it might be something about who owns that media house. It might be something about, well, all the politicians will get the flag from us, whoever it is. But still, you might tell yourself, let me pull back my punches on this guy because he's saying the right thing. And it might be good for the country. So you just pull back a little, but politicians, a week later they change. So we go for him again.
Maybe it's a little bit of the wisdom of age, and not necessarily a growth of fear.
That's right. Exactly so.
So you've got some elections coming up soon in August, the general election.
Yes.
Do you have things up your sleeve? Do you know what you're going to be targeting, or do you wait to see what comes?
Yeah, election year normally gives us cartoonists a lot of fodder to produce our stuff, and this is another exciting year. Now normally there are fears. There's so much that happens, and politicians jumping all over the place. So we've got so much to do. Well, I've got personally, I've got stuff that I've lined up to do, and there's some things that I'm holding back on doing because I know the scenario is likely to change in a couple of weeks' time, as there are new rules in place. So those laws have kind of put politicians into a straitjacket, where, for example, one has to run in the party that he or she is registered within. There's no way that you lose a party nomination, then run to another party or to become an independent candidate. That is not there. So there's lots of fun. But where the fireworks really are, obviously, are the big wigs, Raila Odinga and William Ruto. It's interesting. It's exciting. We are not lost for material right now. And as we draw closer to the August election date, it's even becoming better. So we have lots of planned, and I guess our audiences are going to enjoy what we produce.
I have to follow you on Twitter and make sure we keep up.
Sure. Yeah. I post my stuff weekly.
I have a question here from one of our journalist fellows, Morten Fritsch from Denmark. He says, we were at the epicenter of the cartoon crisis due to a drawing of the Prophet Muhammad with a bomb in his turban. Yeah. In principle, people were backing the right of freedom of speech. However, people were also divided. Is it really worth risking national security and people's lives over a drawing? Were we being brave and principled, or just culturally abrasive? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this has been always a very tricky question. Also, since the time that our colleagues at Charlie Hebdo were murdered, we did work with one or two of them in Nairobi. They were here on a special trip here some years ago, and one of them was the victims. And we went on a local television station, Maddo, I, and others, Garth, the cartoonist, and that question actually really can bother one's mind. Yes, our freedoms, our media freedoms must be respected. Oh yes, yeah, we can't run away from that. It can't be taken away from us. I've always been saying there are some limits or ceilings that one, an individual cartoonist can have. And I would not probably go that far and draw the prophet as it is, not really out of fear, but anyway, if they don't want me to do it, okay, fine, I'll move on and do something else. But I will carry some criticism of religious fanatics, especially from that faith, as it is. Now, coming back to these bold cartoonists in Europe who've done caricatures of the prophet. Actually, for them, they were doing what they believed they must do, and they went ahead and did so. And to me, any protest towards that should be at the same level, at the same level. This is stuff that is being put on paper. So if you're going to protest, then we'll also expect you to put your protest on paper and say that, hey, look, you guys, this is unfair. We do not depict Prophet Muhammad in artwork, let alone cartoons. Actually, they don't. That's why there are no murals, no portraits of the man. So to me, the protest will be, the response will be equally the same. protest and even have a very strong language there. Carrying arms against those people is going way overboard. I think it's, as they say, killing a small insect using an ICBM missile.
Say more, will you, Maddo, about those artists felt like they must do that. What is that feeling like in you when you see something that you must do as an artist?
It's first of all, it's their job. Then importantly, this is our calling. There's nothing else that we do to earn a living. This is it. And to me, whatever is there in terms of material, then we should grasp it and use it. They chose to use that one to grow the audiences, to have the audiences read what they were putting out. It's their job, as it is.
It's funny when you're talking. It sounds like you're describing a religion, which it would explain something of the ideological clash that happened with people feeling like I must respond to this. But yeah, we can keep talking about that for hours. Let's move on to a question.
I've had protests myself over time, even including receiving some threatening email.
What was it in relation to?
I did produce some artwork some years ago and used the Arabic script.
Right.
Yeah, that spells out a verse. And so some people are fair enough to write to me and tell me, no, keep away from that. But then I got this nasty email from somebody who said that prepare yourself for your imminent doom. Wow. It was frightening.
Wow. Yeah. What do you do in that situation? Do you take it to the police, to your editors? You just ignore it?
Well, one is supposed to. You're supposed to alert your editors and alert the police. But in this case, I wrote back. I wrote back to this man. Whoever he was, and I told him if it was a him that, hey, look, why don't we talk about this thing? We can talk it over. Why don't you convince me, that I'm doing wrong? And the guy never responded.
It's an interesting tactic. Yes. We have a question from Laura Romero from Colombia. She says, cartoonists exaggerate to show their criticism. Do you think that in this exercise, it is easy to cross the line and fall into, for example, misogyny, racism, or xenophobia? Yes.
There's a very thin line from what's going to be positive into the negative. So we normally look out for that. It's and we made mistakes in the past. I have, yes, and gotten fried for that. At times when you're producing that cartoon, you don't realize so until you see it hours later or the next day, and you tell yourself, oh no, and there are protests at that time. So this is, it boils down to the individual cartoonist that you have to be careful. You have to remember the sensitive areas in society, some minority groups that you can make fun of, and it's not really the best way to do so. Misogyny, some vulnerable members of society, people with disabilities. We have to be very careful about that. I and my colleagues, especially my colleague, let me not mention him right now, has had quite some problem with women, at times, depicting a politician being massaged by a bevy of women. And women actually almost scratched him into kingdom come. You see, this, I can imagine that when he produced this, he didn't think that why should I mix these the masseurs, whatever you call them, with men also, because it's not only women who do this job, there are men also. But these are one of those things that are deep in our minds, and we don't stop to think about it when we are just about to produce a cartoon. But I can tell our audience that we are very sensitive about all this.
Are there any cartoons that you've come to regret from your younger days?
Yes. In fact, that goes with what we've just spoken about right now. About 89 or 90, there's this music rapper. His name was Yellow Man. He visited Nairobi and had some concerts. And I came up with a cartoon and say that Kenyans who want to be like him should jump into a barrel full of sulfuric acid and, become as light as him. Now, this guy actually has albinism. I regret that cartoon to date. Well, I was told of, remember that time there was no social media, so people wrote into the newspaper. It was the Daily Nation at the time. There were many letters. So the newspaper was obliged to apologize. And also people made calls, this call put me through to Maddo. I take the call and I'm insulted, and that person cuts off. I really felt bad about it. So we carried an apology, and I never met him, but I hope that apology reached him.
That must be awful to have, and I suppose this is true for journalists as well, that you have your mistakes in writing, in print, forever, for everyone to see.
Yeah. Yes, as they say, one of my best editors is a gentleman by the name of Joe Cardi. He's retired now. And he kept on reminding us in his lectures that once a cartoonist has made that artwork, you can't change it. It's just that one visual. Unlike when somebody is writing, let's say, some article, you can always bash somebody, but at the end of that article, in the last paragraph, say that this guy is not that bad. Yes, in a cartoon you can't do that.
There's a comment here from Terry Anderson, who says Cartoonist Rights Network International is a small NGO concerned with human rights of cartoonists criminalized, censored, threatened, and displaced. The most popular piece of snark sent our way is that no cartoonist ever brought down a dictator. And they go on. But actually, I want to stop there. Do you think that's true? No cartoonist ever brought down a dictator?
Well, bringing down a dictator will not take one individual or just one small group somewhere. Yeah. It has to be. It's a collective effort. It's a pebble that starts. Probably one or two people can kick up the process. It's a pebble that let me say snowballs into a huge kind of boulder that now that dictator cannot stop. And I believe that cartoonists have been part of that process. Oh yes, along with everybody else.
Yeah, I would put people like Zapiro on the list of people who are pebbles.
Oh yes, in fact, wherever Zuma is, I think he remembers Zapiro. Let's remember Zapiro. Yes,
Terry continues, I hope that Maddo continues to use his good humor and drawing ability to hold the powerful to account for many years to come. So thank you, Terry, for that.
Many thanks for that, Terry.
Milica from Serbia says, do you ever draw children?
Yes, I depict them a lot, especially. Now that's the social side of the stuff that I do for my column. Yes, I do. It's not as often as doing the adults, but yes, I do. Young folks, but then children, not that much. Once in a while, when it's necessary, depicting them at home with their parents, probably watching television and so on. But then I start increasing the frequency when it comes to teenagers, then young adolescents. Yes, yeah.
I don't know, Milica, if you want to expand more on what that question was. But a question here from Hanne from Norway. Are there topics that you stay away from because of security concerns? We've talked a little bit about that, but to ask it directly, is there something that you stay away from?
Oh, yes. No, I can't really think of anything right now. I and my colleagues handle everything as it is. But obviously, if I have information of, let's say, some government action, military action against terrorism in this country, I will not publish it. I think that's a level that I can talk about, staying away from a topic of some sort. Or let's say, for example, after there's been an attack, I wouldn't want to really, give it prominence as it is, so as not to encourage copycat attacks. Yeah, but when it comes to the government and its contents, those are the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of whatever. I don't shy away from that. Yeah.
There's a message in the chat, and I would encourage anyone who has questions, put their questions in the Q&A box. But just in this one instance, I will ask on behalf of Abdirahman, responding to what we were saying about the Charlie Hebdo stuff. Aren't there things that that can be drawn for the purpose of entertainment more interesting than the prophets who it is forbidden to draw? And I think I want to take that question and say, is political cartooning about entertainment? Is that your prime? Is it more important to you to make people laugh or to make them think?
Actually, both. Now, our business is entertainment, really. And in making people think, we use our cartoons, just the same way as there are various other channels to make people think. There are talk forums, there are lectures, there are books to be read, and so on. So we are only one part of that path to harnessing the power of human thought. So I and my colleagues do exactly that. And the nature in which we do it is through humor. And we have to make people laugh. So as we criticize politicians, for example, we have to make it funny. Yeah, we have to put those politicians in funny or at least ridiculous situations. We want to draw a laugh from our audiences, and as we do that, there always has to be a message, and that message is what should provoke thought.
What is the level of freedom of press and speech that you have in Kenya now? Is it, as some people are reporting, is it changing? Is it under threat? Do you feel a change in the air?
Yeah, there's been tremendous change, because I've been in the media all these years. Actually, it's not even 1989, because 1989 is when I began doing my column is a mad world.
Right.
But yeah, indeed, I've worked in the media ever since the mid 1980s, and I've been part of that change. I've also seen that change. There was a time that obviously, not even drawing the president, uttering his name in public without the title president would land you into trouble, and there are various things that we could not do at the time. But over time, things have changed so much. In fact, even in the dying days of Moi, his last years in power, we are ridiculing him and so on, into Mwai Kibaki and right now Uhuru Kenyatta. We are at this point unstoppable, and it goes also for the other areas in the media, television, radio, and print. I dare say that Kenya right now is the freest in terms of media freedoms in the region. Yeah, all the other countries surrounding us still have quite some limits, and even in some of them, if you try to depict the specific high-ranking politicians, the repercussions are indeed deadly. But again, that is not to say that we are here enjoying the relative freedoms. I say relative, because we've not achieved 100%. It's not to say that we can sit back, and say, okay, we've done it. No. There's still, the media here is still under quite some threat. There've been physical assaults on journalists, whether in office or out in the field. That has occurred ever since the Kibaki days up to right now. We can still be attacked. And again, when such attacks are carried out, it's, I always say this thing about the king and his men. The king can be mad, banging tables, and why is this guy doing this? And the king might not necessarily issue an order that go and do something about this fellow, but the king's men will feel obliged that I think we should go and break a leg. This guy is playing around with a boss, that kind of thing. So that scenario so much exists in this country, and it's very, very dangerous. That's why sometimes when we depict these people, our fear is the deadly responses that might come from the individuals surrounding him or her. So, but otherwise, the laws right now are that we do have some protection to a specific level.
Good.
But then we've also been exposed in terms of like ages ago, you'd find that if you carried something, it's a media house that was dragged to court and charged. Laws have changed so that we also are now respondents. So the publishing house will be the first respondent, and if it's in the case of a cartoonist becomes the second respondent. The editor may become the third. So the three of you go to court. But those, and I'm in court right now. There are a couple of court cases actually going on, lawsuits, that is. But those many years ago, we were just told that that cartoon that you did is in court, and we never use it. We never had to go to court. Wow. So we are grateful of what's going on right now, and it's thanks not to the government mellowing and changing. No. It's about the media itself and how it has fought over the years, ever since the 1980s, to gain the present freedoms.
How many times have you been taken to court?
Lawsuits, it's countless times, really. Wow. I think there are like 3 ongoing lawsuits right now.
Wow. Yes. Has anyone ever succeeded?
It's sometimes it's not advisable to sue a media house. Oh yes, and there are politicians who have lost and actually paid. And so, but what we do, in case somebody might be listening to this and they're wondering, but we never really see the end of these cases. No, the media houses don't publish that unless it's pretty big. We've had cases where either a media house has had to pay a couple of millions, or a politician has had to in the reverse order. But we normally don't really do so. But there's a lady politician from Central Kenya who sued a newspaper, and she got her facts wrong. And she was told, you're going to pay the media house plus that writer.
Ooh.
Yes.
How much did she end up having to pay?
No, I don't know. These are now amongst the cases that were not really published. Right. And there are those categories. There's defamation, there's public slander, there's innuendo, and so on. So many times they like using innuendo to get to us, because we don't use their names, or at least we can just probably corrupt their names. And we use their distorted or altered physical features. So that is where they try to get their lawyers to nail us on the innuendo. Yes.
Sounds like a really good freedom of information request story for any investigative journalist listening.
That's right.
I want to just also share, as we were talking about Uhuru and not sitting back. I thought this was, you really went for him. You really went for him in this one.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit of the background to the story and the cartoon?
Yeah, one beautiful thing about a character like this one is his physical features. They lend themselves to very great artwork from cartoonists. Let me not describe his features, everybody can see. And also something else is his own gait, the way he walks and behavior. the things that he says and so on, he opens himself as a victim to cartoonists as it is. In this particular image, he had gone to Dubai, and word came out that he was actually watching the Grand Prix. There's a Grand Prix round there.
Abu Dhabi, yeah.
Yes, Abu Dhabi, sorry, yes, yeah. And he came back pretty tired, and so he was visibly tired on television when he arrived back. That word on the plane behind there, Udhamakistan, Udhamaki refers to leadership in the Kikuyu language.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
What does Hinundi Ninini mean?
Oh, okay. I'm surprised you noticed that. It means, what is that bulge? What is that bulge? Actually, now I will say something, because that bulge actually exists on the presidential plane.
Oh.
Now, I won't talk further about it. The same way we are talking about there's some things that we can hold back in case the wrong guys are listening to. But I know exactly what that is, being an armchair aviator.
Enough said.
Yes.
I'm just going to check to see if there are any final questions that we can take. Question from Gideon Sarpong in Ghana. What is the future of cartoonists in Kenya and East Africa? And do you play any role in grooming young artists, or training young artists, I should say?
Yes. There are some schools of thought which are very fearful of our future, but we normally assure them, no, we are going nowhere. Indeed, cartoons and cartoonists have gone through tremendous change, revolution, really, over so many years, actually centuries. People might forget we've been around for hundreds of years. Yeah, people who study cartoons will remember people like James Gilray, who was heavily published in the 16th, 17th century. So we are here and we are going nowhere. The only thing is that we have to play our game right to remain relevant and so on. And that's why we also gone so much into trying to build a large social media presence. And we are also trying to kind of not really animate, because we do animation, but that's something else. But editorial cartoons, which are static, once we get it online, sometimes we can actually probably turn it into a GIF. Well, I don't know how you pronounce that. That is with very limited animation. Some eye movements, some eyebrow movements, the mouth, with some motion graphics. But we remain that still image as it is. The thing is just to build a large social media presence as it is, because, well, that's where so many people are. And as regards young folks, oh yes, I've got so many of them under the belt, and so many of them are even now guys in their 30s and early trade. Over the past number of years, I've slowed down a little about bringing young people into the fold. And you may also realize that things have changed so much. So some of them being churned out of colleges are snapping up other ways. They may be artists, but the opportunities are now really much larger and accommodating for them. But in those days, for example, we just have a handful of publications, 3 daily newspapers, several weeklies and other periodicals and so on. So this is what everybody would converge on. And so right now, so many of them are getting jobs elsewhere. In fact, some of them don't really even find it attractive getting into the newspapers as it is. But we are there. We are not dinosaurs. We ain't going nowhere.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. We need you. One last question from Claudia. She says, who are the cartoonists that we should be following? Where should we be looking for their work, and who should we be looking for? Apart from you, of course.
Yes.
And while you think about that answer, let me just quickly say that anyone on this call who hasn't seen it, we have to give a shout out to Maddo's book, the hot years, 2007 to 2011. But Maddo, who should we be following?
Yes, okay. Again, it depends on what region. If we are talking about the Kenyan region or East African region specifically, then fine, I can go into that pretty easily. But when we go wider, you obviously know that humor, there's international humor, but most humor is actually kind of localized. So some Kenyans might struggle to get British humor,
Sure.
or Indian humor,
Sure.
and vice versa. But there's stuff that everybody on Earth can laugh to. Something that appeals to everybody.
Yeah.
Now, across the African continent, you've mentioned Zapiro, who's a wonderful cartoonist. He's a very close friend of ours. I was introduced to him by Gado, met him in Nairobi. Anyway, there's Tayo Fatunla. He does great portraits from across in West Africa. Within the region here, we've got Victor Ndula. He's now the lead cartoonist at the Daily Nation. We've got Gams. We have Celestine Wamiru, our top lady artist, cartoonist really, and also illustrator, of course. I'm happy that I got her into the business, along with Victor and Gams. We've got quite a bunch of them. I'm
glad to hear a woman on that list.
Yes, yeah. So many of them have been very shy about this, but nonetheless, she's there and really holding her head high. Past artists include people like Terry Haas. Terry Haas was the father, actually, of Kenyan cartoons. He's a former Fleet Street kind of London fellow, but he ended up here in the late 1960s. And he's the one who revolutionized the Kenyan scene as regards cartoons and so on. So there's a bunch of us. Those many years ago, in the 1980s, each newspaper had only one cartoonist. I was the only guy at the Daily Nation at the time, for example. But right now, the standard newspaper, I think, has got, I can't even count them, probably 6. The Daily Nation and the other publications have got that kind of number. So it's quite a number as it is right now. And amongst them, I always say that now you will warm up to that guy who is sensational, not the boring kind of cartoonist. You know, somebody who comes up with okay, the cartoon is there, but okay, it's fine. Then you flip the pages. There's that sensational one, the one that you look forward to reading, the one that you look forward to getting to and consuming whatever they put across.
That highlight to look forward to once a week. Which you are for many Kenyans, Maddo. Thank you. And thank you so much for your generosity of time and thought today. You've shared so openly and so many interesting things. And I can't thank you enough. Please come back. If you're ever in Oxford, come and visit us.
Anytime. Yeah, I know Gado has been there. Certainly. Yeah. Many thanks for having me.
Thank you. Next week we have, we were meant to be having the Moscow bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal, but she's a little busy with a bit of war. So yes. Instead we'll be hosting Bellingcat's Moscow expert, Christo, and do please join us for that. It's going to be fantastic. And thank you all for your questions.
I'll certainly hook in also because of what's going on right now.
Yeah. It's a strange time to be alive. That's all I can say. Right. But lots of material for you guys. So
of course, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Good. Asante sana.
Karibu.